Welcome to Fine, I'll Talk About It, the podcast where we say the quiet parts out loud. Real talk, straight to the point, no fake positivity. I'm your host, Danielle Young, and today I'm joined by Sophie Shaw, all the way from the UK. Sophie is a practical healer. She's a hypnotherapist, Reiki teacher, author, and a well-being coach, specializing in healing anxiety and other mental and emotional issues. And on today's episode, we are talking about the impact of relentless positivity and how unhelpful it can be. Sophie, welcome to Fine, I'll Talk About It.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Why don't we start off by just telling us a little bit about you and your journey, and then we'll get into the relentless positivity part.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I feel really
I
positive about
know.
it. Well, you kind of said all the good stuff. Yeah, I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm a Reiki teacher. I've been in practice, I guess, about 16 years, which always makes my mind go a bit dull. And I got in. Sort of fell into it by accident. Really, I was a single parent and looking for something that was obviously flexible, but also something that was meaningful to me. And I'm afraid I just was never really built for the 9 to 5. I did try it. I've done a lot of 9 to 5 things on a temporary basis and just found that that's not something that I'm ever going to gel with very well. And it wasn't very meaningful to me. So I first started practicing Reiki 9, and then it just sort of mushroomed from there, really. I started just loving working with people, and I wanted to do more. I mean, the healing is beautiful. I love Reiki, but I wanted to do more. I wanted to get stuck in with people's minds and the way that they think and the beliefs that they hold. And, it was sort of coupled with the work that I was doing for myself as well. I had a bunch of therapy and coaching over the years because I always found being in my own head a bit of a struggle. And I realized, in my very, very late 40s and early 50s that I had ADHD, and I'd had it all this time and didn't realize. I was like, oh my God, that's why. That's why I am the way I am. So that kind of a layer of self-acceptance without denying the difficulties of what actually was is kind of what's fueled me in working not just on my own stuff, but on helping people work on their stuff too. Yeah, and that's what I guess led me to meeting you, because you and I have the very same ethos, which is this whole kind of good vibes only is just really unhelpful.
It is. Yeah. And we'll definitely get into this because I feel like it's super important that people understand where it comes from and why it's not helpful at all.
Yeah.
And you've had quite a journey as well.
I think what you were getting at was what I've been dealing with for the last year, which explains my crazy haircut, which is that I've been dealing with breast cancer for the last year. So that was a time when I really got to grips with what it meant to me to be truly positive, because I think we have this idea of cancer patients that they're sort of saintly, that they're handling everything with such grace and they're being so positive. And I just thought, I don't want to be that. I'm never going to be that. I'm not Buddha. I'm the anti-Buddha, probably. But equally, I also saw, I was looking for, I went shopping immediately because that's my go-to kind of dopamine fix. What
Hmm.
can I buy that will help me feel kind of positive about this whole journey? And I was looking at cancer merchandise, which unbelievably is a thing. And the language was all about fighting and battling. And because it was a breast cancer, they had these, I saw these T-shirts that said, my breast just tried to kill me. And I was like, no, I don't want that either. Or, you get these badges that say Shitty Titty Club. And I just thought, no, 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 I don't want to feel that level of fight with my own body either.
Yeah.
So, I'd been I've been working with an amazing coach, Nick Chung, for about 4 years prior to being diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was just uncovering layer upon layer of self acceptance. And I think I'd taken it to such an extent that when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I was like, oh, little buddy, you can't stay anymore. There's bits of me that are going to have to go. My lymph nodes, you know, they had to go because they'd picked up the cancer as well. And I just thought they were like, maybe I took the self acceptance too far, but I felt like they were these kind of sentinels that had kind of gathered it all up for me and protected me from it going everywhere. And then they had to be taken out, and I almost felt sorry for all of them.
Wow.
It was that to me felt like a much more soft, realistic, and compassionate place to be rather than I'm fighting you, I'm going to battle you, and I'm going to win. And also not being everything's beautiful and spiritual and wonderful and amazing.
Yeah.
It's like somewhere in the middle where you've got one foot in the real world. This is happening and it's shit and it hurts and it's challenging and I hate it. And one foot in the other world, which is, but it's all good. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. And I think so many people take that route. So many people take the route of, I'm going to fight this, because it is. And I mean, cancer, it's this invasion in your body. And it's like, well, what do you do with an invasion? You fight it.
Yeah.
And the way that you took was so beautiful because you formed an entirely new relationship with your own body.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you feel like that helped you better in healing with seeing things as, okay, it's gathered up, it's in these little safe places to be taken out, and that's it. I'm just going to let that go.
Yeah, I don't know. It certainly helped me mentally. Definitely helped me mentally. I don't know. I think it probably helped me physically. I've recovered pretty well from a lot of the treatments. When I started all the treatments, they said they were going to really go crazy and give me everything at massively high doses
Yeah.
because, and this really made me laugh because I was young and fit. And I was like, I do not look young and fit, but I'm going to take it. If you're
Yeah.
going to tell me that, I'll take it.
Take
But
it where you can.
absolutely. It's a massive, I mean, I'm still having certain treatments, so it's still very up and down or twisty turny kind of path, and it's mentally incredibly challenging. So I think not to get into a fighting stance about it, and also not to pretend to be pink about it and Pollyanna, because there's nothing pink about breast cancer at all. It's you're in the trenches, really. It's hard. That helped me mentally to survive it, I think, having that kind of attitude about it. And I also want to say, however anybody wants to deal with it for themselves, that's great. I'm not going to say no, you should do it my way, or we've all got to choose our own path, with how we look at it. But for me, I couldn't find anything that reflected how I really felt about it. It was one or the other. It was, gung ho, fight, 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 or it was just not realistic, too sweet. I wanted something that felt more like me, and so that was just, I guess, that was an attitude that I cooked up for myself.
Yeah. No, I think that's perfect. And that's what this podcast is all about, new perspectives and doing what feels right for you and not bending to what other people say or what other people do or like what's the societal norm. And I think it's really beautiful that you took that autonomy and said, you know what? This is shit. This is shit. This is what feels good. And
Yeah.
I'm running with it.
Yeah.
And how are you today? Are you cancer free or
As far as I'm aware, I am cancer free, which is great. It's one of those things where, there could potentially be a teeny tiny little cell floating around somewhere. It's not likely, but it's possible. And it would never show up on any scan. But essentially, I'm cancer free, but I have to take a whole bunch of stuff for a lot of time, for a lot of years, in order to maintain that or to guard against it ever coming back. So yeah, it's still mentally very challenging. And being real, today has not been the greatest day. I've just been to the doctor today, and had just a kind of just frustrating kind of progress, and I'm at that stage where it is frustrating rather than unbelievably challenging, which it was earlier during chemo and things like that. So I'm incredibly lucky. And here's that balance, because on the one hand, I'm pissed off today, if I'm being really real.
Yeah.
I'm fed up. But I'm aware that I've made great progress and that things are all moving in the right direction. And I'm very lucky and blah, blah. But I'm fed up today because,
Some days are still shit.
some days are a bit shit, nowhere like as shit as they used to be. But some days are a bit like, I don't want to get up. I just want to be in bed today.
Yeah, totally understand.
Yeah.
Totally understand. We just got through Mercury retrograde. So for those of you that believe, hoy, this one was hard.
It was, wasn't it? It was so like within days of it, just before it even started, things started happening. I was like, this is such a Mercury retrograde thing to
Yep.
happen. So you're not working suddenly. Why? Why are you not working? Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the planets hate us this for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. They're like,
Yeah, they're like, okay, we're gonna
yeah,
watch you suffer.
yeah,
We're gonna,
totally.
oh yeah, let's watch the humans. Just
Bibbling about like
yeah.
headless chickens.
Gosh. So, well, okay, I'm glad to hear that you're better. Not glad to
Yeah.
hear that you did not have a great day today. But
It really, on the scale of things, it was a minor bad day. And actually, it was not actually a bad day. I just, maybe I'm just tired.
yeah, well, you're allowed to feel that way. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All emotions are welcome here. That's what I
Yeah.
always say.
Absolutely. That's why we say this is real and raw
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
unfiltered because that's how we're humans. We show
Yeah.
up at any given moment on how we feel. And, you know, being in touch with your emotions is part of the human experience. That's
Completely. I think it's important when because obviously I write an email to my audience once a week and I, give them perspectives on whatever issue I think is good for them to think about this week. And I share little tidbits of my life as long as I have largely processed them. I don't trauma dump ideally on my audience every week and go like, oh God, I'm really suffering. But what I do want to do is normalize that even though you've worked on your stuff and even though you're still working on your stuff, some days just ain't that great. And that's okay,
yeah.
and that you're allowed to be. I think true positivity comes from having first accepted, experienced, and just allowed your emotions. And then you get to do something else. Then you kind of you're not up, then you're not at war with them. I've been at war with my own emotions and been at war with my own body for most of my life.
Mm,
So, yeah, at a certain point, you kind of have to go, it is what it is. I feel not great about it sometimes, but it is what it is.
yeah.
So now what? That's my
Right.
feeling.
Now, yeah, no, I get it. Not everything is sunshine and butterflies all the time.
Right.
And if we continue down this good vibes only path, it's just it's not allowing us to feel. It's not allowing us to accept balance.
Mm, yeah.
It's giving us one choice, and that is I can only be positive. When inside I'm screaming and thrashing and clawing my skin, but I can only be positive because whoever set this up said that I had to be. Otherwise, I'm not a good person, or I'm not going to manifest anything, or I'm not going to show up as my authentic self in the world. And it's like, that is such crap.
It's such crap.
It's such
Yeah.
crap. You're allowed to have a bad day.
Yeah. I mean, how are we supposed to learn anything if we are constantly in a state of kind of glassy eyed bliss? It's completely unrealistic. In the 40s and 50s, I don't know if this was an expression in the US, but in Britain, we used to talk about having a stiff upper lip.
Oh, yeah.
That was a very right. So
Yep.
it's a very, from my grandparents' generation, from my parents and grandparents' generation, that you just don't talk about stuff, that you keep it to yourself. It's not polite to talk about your emotions. I just can't help feeling that this kind of good vibes only, Pollyanna positivity is just that stiff upper lip, but rebranded for the modern world, for the pop psychology world. We're people. We're not robots. We have, and our brains are so brilliantly complex that in the space of a second, we're going to have all sorts of thoughts and feelings that don't necessarily reflect who we truly are. Like I might think, you cut me up in traffic, you absolute bitch. I don't really think that or feel that. If I met that person in real life, I would never treat that person that way or say something like that. But a
Right.
fleeting thought, yeah, maybe. My brain can do that. It can think all sorts of things at the same time.
Right. Yeah. I just think that there's this modern day philosophy that we can't have two thoughts in our head at once.
Yeah, we
It's
can
like,
have. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, do you have any idea? I mean, our thoughts every day are in the billions.
right. Yeah,
So, we have all of these neural pathways and, these beautiful electric, synapses going in our brain every single day, and they're not meant to be stifled.
yeah,
They're not
yes,
meant to just be suffocated and held down by someone random's rules.
yeah.
We have to feel,
Ah,
and it's great, if you want to be positive, that's great. But what are you bypassing to get there?
yeah. Exactly. I think that's the thing, so many of my clients, particularly I think the ones who've worked on themselves already and have a sense of what being positive is about, they experience negative emotions. And because they've kind of dealt with that already, they think, I shouldn't be feeling this. And so they try and skip over the feeling and rush straight to the positive practices that they already have that they know make them feel better. Oh,
Mhm.
so it's like, I'm having a bad feeling. Okay, I'm gonna go for a walk, or I'm gonna listen to a meditation, or I'm just gonna think positively because I don't have these emotions anymore. And that to me is not the goal of working on your stuff. Because again, it's just that stiff upper lip. When you close the door and you're intolerant of your negative, so-called negative emotions, they just sort of pile up behind that door, which means that they last for so much longer. They just pile up and the pressure builds and builds until, you have a crisis or an argument or you burst into tears in the middle of the supermarket, which is not what anybody wants.
Right.
Instead, if you can just kind of go, having a shit feeling, I don't like it. Okay, well, here it is. And then it just passes and it's not a big deal. That to me is emotional literacy, I suppose. It's just kind of going, I feel something, it's not great. I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to, maybe I just sit here for a minute and feel it. And then I go off and do something. So many times, and I'm no better, I do this too. We try and skip over that because we don't want to feel bad.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, and who wants to be uncomfortable on purpose,
Yeah.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's growth, it's learning, and this is how your body is telling you what it needs. I always
Mm,
tell my clients when emotions like that come up, it's coming up for a reason. And what I tell everybody is let it come up, sit with it, ask yourself, what is it that I need in this moment? And
mm.
then
Yeah, listen.
listen, and then just give it to yourself. Give whatever your body says, I need this. Give
Yeah.
that to yourself
Yeah.
and let it go.
Yes.
It's coming up to go. And I always tell everybody, say thank you for that. Thank you for
Mm,
allowing me to feel this emotion because now I understand more and I'm grateful because now I know what I need to work on.
yeah. That's great.
It
Absolutely. Yeah, that gratitude piece is really important, isn't it? It's
is,
just
yeah. Because instead of forming this negative relationship with everything, well, I can't be sad, I can't cry because then you know, I'm too vulnerable and I don't do vulnerability. Well, guess what? Your body's going to force you to do it
It will.
eventually. I mean, that you're not going to have a choice at some point. So dealing with it as it comes up is going to be a lot better than when the floodgates open
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
everything just comes rushing out.
Yeah,
And, you end up like I used to on my closet floor in a fetal position, just not being able to breathe.
right. Absolutely. The same. Have been there.
Yeah.
I think, how do I say this without being mean to people I love? Let's say that I had a lot of messages as I was growing up that my negative emotions were not acceptable, which meant that being undiagnosed ADHD, big tantrums and big emotions. I would explode because I spent so long trying to tamp it down and be a good girl and behave. And women in particular have
Oh,
this, we
yeah.
have to be the good girl. We have to be polite. We don't have to be, we're not meant to be loud. We're not meant to, have big emotions and all that kind of stuff. And you just sit on it and sit on it and sit on it, or you close the door on it, close the door on it. Just going to, it's like a powder keg, it's going to ignite.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think coming to terms with the fact that I still have big emotions and that's great and a wonderful thing about me means that they're actually less big than they used to be. That's the weird thing. I was just writing today about that wonderful thing that Carl Rogers, the psychologist, Carl Rogers said. He said the paradox is that when I accept myself exactly as I am, then I can begin to change. And I think it's
Yeah.
the same with emotions when you can just say, well, I feel bitchy. I feel mean. I feel vengeful. I feel hatred in this moment. I'm not going to do anything about it, but I feel that, and that's okay. And I'm not going to reject myself for feeling all of those wonderful rainbow colored feelings. All the feelings are welcome here. And then I get to choose what I'm going to act on. And no, I'm not going to act on vengeful, bitchy, revengeful, whatever nasty feelings because that's not really who I am.
Right.
They're just feelings that I had briefly.
They're just blips on the radar.
Yeah, they're just trapped wind, and I felt them and I passed them and they went. That's all they
Yeah.
are. They're just a bad fart. Better out than in.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, it's like better get rid of it than just let it
mm.
settle.
Or
Letting
to
it
be less
settle.
disgusting, it's like weather. That's, to be more polite about it. It's
Oh
just
no,
weather.
the moment's passed.
It's past that. I've done it now.
I love that though. I love that analogy.
Yeah, it works.
It's relatable. I mean,
Yeah.
so when you were going through your treatments and what kind of a support system did you have? Did you have those people in your life that were like, oh, just think positive or
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? Actually, well, for one thing, I was incredibly lucky. I have a really wonderful family, but I was aware of how some people could be. And so, right from the get-go, I set up boundaries and I said, this is what I will not want anybody to talk to me about. So I said, nobody is to give me any dietary advice. Nobody is to tell me about supplements or remedies or things that you have chosen or that other people you've heard that it works. I've got this. My medical team are fantastic. So that was my boundary, and that was a very necessary boundary because I really didn't want other people's influence. I wanted their support, and I'm so lucky I had it. And from the NHS here and from, there's a charity in Norfolk, which is where I live in the east of England. There's a wonderful charity called the Big C who provided an enormous amount of wraparound support, which was just phenomenal. But some of that support I had to actively reject. So things like, support groups, I had to actively reject. Because this is the paradox about support groups is that they're not very supportive. What they tend to be, in my experience, is a competition about who's got it worse. And it tends to be a bit of a, sort of it can be a negative spiral.
Russian
I'm
Olympics is what I like to call it.
right. Yeah, you got it. So, because I think my brand of positivity is fairly unique, or not unique, but unusual, I would say. Not common. And I'm a control freak. I largely kept myself to myself in terms of grabbing other cancer patients for support. I didn't. So I created a little kind of, I don't know, I suppose a boundary around myself with that. And it was just, and has been just me and my medical team. And they would give me all sorts of stuff to read as well. And a lot of it, I would start reading and go, no, no, thank you. I don't want to read that. I don't want to hear about what could happen, all the side effects that might happen. I don't want to put ideas in my head about how long I'm going to suffer with X, Y, Z. Let's just cross that bridge when we come to it. I trust you. Give me the meds. Tell me largely what they're for and what they're going to do. I'm not being ignorant. I'm just saying, I don't want to open myself up to take suggestions of all the terrible things that might and could happen to me with all these treatments.
Right.
So yeah, it was a sort of a boundaried support that kept me sort of sane, about as sane as I was before anyway.
Yeah. No, the B word,
Mm.
boundaries, a lot of people have trouble with setting boundaries and keeping boundaries
Yeah.
and respecting boundaries. So I'm glad that you did that for yourself. I'm actually working on something right now with boundaries because it's such a big topic that comes up, the people pleasers, I can't set boundaries because then they won't like me anymore. And
Yeah,
it's so hard to, to set those and to stick with them and, to hold true to yourself.
very hard. And actually, I'm rubbish at boundaries, to be perfectly honest with you. I really struggle with them. That's not fair. I'm not rubbish, but I'm not, I find them hard. Um, And I think that the only reason I set that boundary was because I was really aware. I was really aware of one particular person who I knew was going to do some of the things that I would really find harmful during my cancer treatment, who would want to jump in and give me all the dietary and the remedies and all that kind of advice that I knew for me only, not for everybody else, but for me only would be harmful. So I set that boundary up for that person, and they struggled to respect it for a whole year.
Wow.
Yeah, they really didn't do terribly well with it, but didn't do appallingly with it either. It was
Yeah.
a constant. It was a constant. I've got this boundary. No, but you don't. Yeah, but I do. Yeah, but you don't. It was hard. It was hard.
Yeah. So what did you do to keep that boundary though?
I just had to keep repeating it.
Mm.
I had to keep repeating it, and I had to come away, and I had a counselor, and I would come away and I would talk to my counselor and say, happened again, happened again. And so, yeah, so I guess here's where my brand of positivity comes in, which is that I was pissed off about it and challenged in the way that I knew I would be, which was why I put the bloody boundary in the first place. So I took it to my counselor. I was real about it and I talked to her about it and I expressed what I felt about it and I felt what I felt about it. And then I remembered the love underneath that, which underpins that relationship with that person, and which ultimately causes them to try and press against that boundary because what they really want to do is help.
Yeah.
But, you know,
That's the hard part too, is
it's
when you
very
know
hard.
that someone's heart is genuine and they just want to
Mm.
help and then like, but you're like, no, but I can love you from a distance.
Your help is harmful. Thank you. I love you. Go away.
I love you, but don't talk to me anymore. I can't deal with you right now.
Yeah.
Just stay over there.
Yeah, it's hard. Boundaries with people you love are really hard.
They
They're
are
really
really,
hard.
they're really, really hard
Yeah.
because those are the people that you're closest to. So you're like, I shouldn't have boundaries with these people, but I have to.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. If you weren't, I wasn't raised in a particularly strict household either, and that was lovely. We were trusted and we were allowed. It was a somewhat liberal, I guess, upbringing, and that was great. But it didn't teach me about saying this isn't okay for me. So stop right there. I never had that. I never
Yeah.
had that example. Yeah, I'm still not great at that.
Yeah. And a lot of people didn't. And then a lot of people grew up in really strict households and have so many boundaries that nobody, it's just like
Yeah.
this wall is built up and no one can get through it.
Yeah. Balance
Uh,
with all things.
yeah, it is. Even, yeah, all things life balance.
Yeah.
And you just have to do what works for you and, take what resonates and leave the rest is what I always tell people.
100%. Yeah. Absolutely that.
Yeah. Well, Sophie, it was so, so wonderful talking to you today. I really appreciate you sharing your story and sharing your insights. And I wish you great health.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry that you had a shit day, but hopefully it's better.
Much. I feel very cheered now. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. Do you want anyone to get a hold of you if
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, norwichtherapy.co.uk is my website, and you can reach me through there. I'm back at work now. So, anyone who wants to have a chat with me about working with me, or anybody who wants to ask me anything about the breast cancer journey, they're very welcome to do that too, bearing in mind I have no medical training and I'm not qualified to give any medical advice, but I can tell you how to be, real and positive in a manageable way, I
Yeah.
think.
I think that your way of forming that relationship with your own body was so powerful because not everybody does that and not everybody
Mm.
knows to do that. It's not intuitive in most of us because of the messaging around cancer and
Right.
because of the messaging around positivity and because of the messaging around boundaries. And you're just bombarded with all of this stuff and really it's just so overwhelming that do we ever really know how to behave?
Yeah, absolutely that. Yeah.
And you have to just be you. Take what resonates and leave the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I did, and that's what I absolutely agree with you on that spot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sane way to do things in my head. Like you can't take on everything.
No, definitely not.
It's freaking impossible.
Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay. Well, it was beautiful talking to you. Thank you so, so
And you.
much. Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
we will have to have you back on.
Oh, yes, please. Anytime. That'll be lovely.
Yeah, that would be great. All right. So thank you for hanging out with us on Fine, I'll Talk About It. If today's episode got you thinking, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you want more real talk, more perspective shifts, and more finally someone said it moments, leave a quick review. It helps other people find the show. You can connect with me on Instagram at Inspired Action Wellness or on my website, inspiredactionwellness.com, for more conversations like this. We will see you in the next episode.